Hi, Jim Roddy here from the RSPA. Jumping in before today's podcast to remind everyone registration is now open for Retail Now 2024, the Retail Technology Channel's #1 trade show, education conference, and networking event. Join RSPA and Retail IT Channel leaders live and in person July 28th through the 30th back on the Strip in Las Vegas at the Paris Hotel. With nearly 200 exhibitors, Retail Now is one-stop shopping for VARs and ISVs. And with an expected 1,600 or more attendees, it's the place for extreme industry connectivity. Across just 48 hours, you'll meet new partners and new solution providers who can accelerate the success of your business. Now, as I record this, early registrations are trending well ahead of prior years, so don't miss out on what could be the best Retail Now ever. If you're serious about the Retail IT channel, you have to attend Retail Now. Again, July 28th through 30th in Las Vegas. Retail Now is where the industry meets. For all the details and to register at discounted early bird rates, visit the Retail Now website today at gorspa.org/Retail Now. Now, when I end this promo, I always like to say, I hope to see you there, and I hope you enjoy this episode. So I do hope to see you there. And I'm telling you, you're definitely going to enjoy this episode. Listen all the way to the end. You'll hear our guests, RSP members from VersiTech, Bold Integrated Payments, Tonic POS, Gary Liu, Tyler Young. They're our guests. They talk about the setbacks and how they shape them. It's really, really powerful stuff. So I hope you take a listen. Thank you. Welcome to another episode of the Trusted Advisor podcast and video series powered by the Retail Solutions Providers Association. Our goal on the pod is to accelerate the success of today's and tomorrow's leaders in the retail IT industry. I'm Jim Roddy, back with you again. Thank you so much for joining us. Throughout this year, we're talking with leaders about their leadership journeys and what they've learned along the way. We have two special guests for you today. I'll introduce them to you, but they don't need to be introduced to each other. Gary Liu is the Chief Revenue Officer and partner at VersiTech, the parent company of Tonic POS and Bold Integrated Payments. Gary began his retail IT channel career in 1998 as the co-founder and VP of sales at Hot Sauce, a point-of-sale software for the restaurant and bar industry. Since 2009, he's helped lead Bold, and also for 4 years, he was the president of Give 360, a fundraising platform that leveraged mobile technology and payments. Gary, welcome to the Trusted Advisor.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to be talking with you. Our second guest is Tyler Young, the CEO and founder and a partner of Gary's at VersiTech. Tyler has over 17 years of experience in the payments and POS industry, including founding Priority Payment Systems West and then VersiTech. Tyler's been named a Next Gen 40 Under 40 Rising Star by the RSPA. He made the 40 Under 40 list for the ETA, that's the Electronic Transactions Association, and he recently served as a judge on the entrepreneurship competition, The Blocks, which you can see on Amazon Prime. Tyler, great to have you here.
Jim, I had to count the years after you told me it was 17. Time went by quick.
Exactly right. Yeah, before we press record, we're going through, how long has it been? Oh my gosh, it's actually been 17 years. So
I think it's been 17. I think it's been 15, Jim. And then I was like, oh, you're right.
Don't get me started on going back. And when did I graduate from high school? Oh my gosh, like it couldn't have been that long. So here we go. Well, I'm glad we're all here today. I'm glad we've all survived working this industry. If you guys can help us first. So, just as I went through your bios there, somebody's probably like, I don't understand this whole VersiTech, Bold Integrated Payments, Tonic POS. How do they work together? How did that collection of companies come about? And where do you guys fit in the retail IT channel? And I guess my other question is, who wants to take that first?
Yeah, I'll take it. Look, VersiTech, I'll start with the end in mind. VersiTech is our corporate company, but our two customer-facing, what I would say partner-facing brands is Bold Integrated Payments and Tonic POS. Bold Integrated Payments is a provider of payment services for ISVs and VARs. We have over 300 partners, and we process over $7 billion a year. On the Tonic POS side, we're building a VAR channel for our Tonic POS restaurant point of sale product as well. So that where do we fit? Jim, we fit right in the center, right? We're very partner focused. And this started a long time ago when I was a restaurant point of sale provider at Hot Sauce. And when I got introduced to payments in 2004, I really recognized there wasn't a lot of transparency or control in this world. And so when I left Hot Sauce in 2009, 2010, and created what eventually became Bold, that's something we wanted to bring to our industry for software providers: transparency, control, the lion's share of our revenue. And so we're really at the center, and it really starts with the partners.
Great. And Tyler, what would you add to that? Like there was Gary, you had Bold. And so Tyler, how did you come into the picture? How did the companies all end up coming together?
Gary and I met as at a President's Club in 2012, Gary. So it was 12 years ago now. And we had an instant connection. We became friends. And over the years, we were mentors for each other, and our careers really paralleled. He launched Bold's model in 2017, where there's some shift and really what it is today. And I acquired Versi at that time. And over the next couple of years, we got very, very close together, and we saw the synergies of he worked with channel partners. There was a need of a technology. I had a technology and a development team. We had that absolute highest level of trust with one another. And I'll say it's not easy when you go from a sole owner, him and his wife, and then me, and we had to decide to come together. And we took a couple of years. We didn't rush it. We really spent 2 years talking about it. And after 2 years, we said, this is pretty serious. Let's just slam these things together. And we did. We just went 50-50 and said, okay, let's build the vision we've been talking about, which has been to expand Bold and add Tonic.
Great. And so let me just clarify, you guys are both 50-50 right now, like equal partners, equal voting shares. So that's, I guess, a big part of the dynamic here as well.
Yes, sir.
It is. It is.
Good. So I guess let's talk about, when people hear about mergers and acquisitions in this industry, it's like a big company gobbling up a small company. But here you guys are as equal partners. And so the acquisitions, like there's all, like you said, the 2 years that you go and figure it out. But once you come together, right, it's exponentially difficult and it's time consuming for the leaders. Can you talk about how you brought those cultures together? How many employees were involved and everything like that? And then what actions did you take back then that have had the biggest impact on building the culture that you have today?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take this question. We roughly had 15 to 20 employees at each company, which there was 3. Gary and I decided we were going to come together for this vision no matter what. Simultaneously, we had identified Ordix as a product of our future. And therefore, we flew down, I think it was in November, and we pitched it to Raymond and David and said, hey, do you guys want to join what we're doing here? And therefore, we timed it with Gary and I merging and acquiring Ordix at the exact same time. So overnight, we went from 15 to 20 employees at each location to somewhere in the 40s, like 45 employees overnight. And that put a workload on every department: client services, accounting, HR. I mean, we could not and did not understand the implications of what we had decided to do and the amount of work and challenge that was in front of us. But the good news is our teams supported it. The middle management, the upper management, we really worked with everybody. We didn't just show up and surprise them and say, here's what we're doing. There was some good inside communication, and everybody was on board. And that's what really got us through to where we are today. And our best step that we took in the beginning was Gary's a big fan of EOS. We wrote these lists, the must-haves in a transaction. We each went to our separate corners of the room, said everything you need, and we put it on the table. And we said, okay, this is non-negotiable. We worked through our non-negotiable list and we got here today, but one of them was EOS. And EOS is essentially the meeting pulse of our organization, which allows us to create core values that we now call Versi values. And I think the thing we did the best is to establish those values. We actually met a few months before the merger, took the time to build our VTO, our traction board, what our Versi values were, so that at the time of announcement, we were able to immediately establish them with the team. And then we started to go through the people analyzer with our team. We started to ensure that we were hiring the additional people using the core values, now Versi values. That, I think, was the single-handed biggest thing that we did, because it was like-mindedness that we all were on this journey together. And what's really difficult is taking a small employee mentality and taking it to a high growth organization. When we were a team of 15 to 16, we have really tenured staff. They enjoy their job, they work with everybody, they know everything, you can count on them. When you jump to 50 people and now over 100 people within 18 months, that challenges that dynamic. And therefore, having the core values established means we're bringing like-minded people in, and it's helped us succeed.
Yeah, I've always said if you have like 10 to 15 people, if you need to make an announcement, you just lean back in your chair and say, "Hey, everybody, listen up." But once you get 50, you got to plan a speech. You have to consider all the different constituencies. So certainly different. So Tyler, you mentioned EOS. For those folks who aren't familiar with EOS, entrepreneurial operating system, and it also shows folks you didn't listen to our last episode where we talked with Stephen Enfield from POS Supply Solutions. He's a big EOS fan as well. Gary, I'm curious, how did you get hooked on EOS, and talk about bringing that into this and this whole merger where you have different operating systems?
Gary, I want to add to that question. Can you also talk about how many businesses you've introduced to EOS that use it today? Because I think Gary single-handedly has added like 100 businesses.
Yeah, I first learned about EOS. Well, actually, we had a business consultant back in 2016. This was right around the time we were going to start to scale the Bold integrated payments strategy. So we took on EOS and launched it in 2017. And I give it a lot of credit to it, right? It's for those of you who don't know, Jim Collins wrote a book From Good to Great, and it talked about how some companies hit a ceiling, right? And other companies, Home Depot, Coca-Cola, continue to grow, and trying to find out the commonalities of, how that, why is that, right? Why do some companies, small businesses not grow and hit a ceiling? And so Traction is the book that EOS, Gino Wickman, I believe, is the founder of.
It is.
So yep. I would say it like this. It's a business operating system that tens of thousands of companies run throughout the world, right? It's not a software. It's not, and to your point, Jim, listen to the last episode, but it really helps us with accountability, put structure in place. Tyler mentioned core values. Core values is how we hire, fire, reward, and recognize our team members. And quite frankly, through the hiring process, we're looking for people that fit our core values. So we started that in 2017. I saw how valuable it was, and before the merger came along, and Tyler and I were talking, this is something we must do, and we're so glad we did. It just creates number one of the things I love about EOS. It gives everybody in an organization a voice, right? You can be, a customer service, client services representative, but when we have our weekly L10 meetings or sub-departmental L10 meetings, this is an opportunity for them to contribute and share and try to help solve issues within their department, which eventually solves issues for our organization. So it was just very important, and I could just really give it a lot of credit to how to bring three cultures together, how to work off the same operating system, and how to drive towards that same vision. The way I'd say it, Jim, it's like rowing a boat, right? You're trying to get from point A to point B, and if I've never been on a rowboating team, Jim, but I would imagine if folks are rowing some people are rowing one direction, other people are rowing the other direction. You may get from point A to point B, may take you longer, right? Yeah. Or if we're all rowing in the same direction, we have to be rowing in sync. And so I think with the vision piece of EOS, it allows the entire organization to know where our North Star is and what we're trying to achieve and where we're headed.
Yeah, to take your boat rowing analogy a step further, not only will you not get where you want to go, at some point someone's going to get frustrated, they're going to grab their oar and just whack somebody else with it, right? And you're just going to have all sorts of mayhem and drama inside your organization. To answer Tyler's question, how many other companies have you steered towards EOS?
Oh, goodness. I know two good friends I think off the top of my head that are in our industry. And they both point of sales, and I recommend EOS to both of them. There's probably been more, but they've adopted it, and it's been tremendous for both their organizations.
Yeah, it might not be the best known operating system or business management system in the world. But inside the retail IT channel, that is by far and away the one that I hear folks like you guys praising as well. So, okay, so that was the whole merger and bringing everybody together. Talk about, and Tyler alluded to it earlier, maintaining that culture during growth, and not just small growth, but you added 47 new hires in 2023, which more or less doubled the size of the company. So talk about the actions you took with those new hires, both in the pre-employment process and the onboarding process, specifically from a culture perspective, to make sure they were a right fit and they felt like they fit inside the org.
It's hard to do that. It has been hard. So I'm the first to admit it. Gary, I know will agree. This has been a challenge. This has been a far greater challenge than either one of us knew that it would be. But with a great challenge, as we scale the mountaintop, it gets more and more exciting to kind of see the sunlight. And adding 47 people was not the plan when we came together. We didn't realize that we required that type of force to achieve the goal we were setting out to achieve. But when we realized it was time to go, I think we hired 75%, roughly 75% of those individuals in the same quarter. And so looking at it a whole year is unfair. It's really about, we had a mentality shift where we said, okay, let's go chase our dream. Then we came together and we said, okay, let the dust settle. And then we said, okay, now we understand what we need to do. And then we went and did it. To ensure that it didn't completely blow up the organization, we took our time to ensure that we did the hiring process with our Versi values, to ensure that when you bring someone in who is like-minded, they don't clash with the existing personnel. And we also spent a lot of time involved ourselves with middle managers and upper management. And we invested our time into the people to ensure that we filtered our decisions. And when we faced a problem, that we took similar approaches. We definitely like having a creative mindset that isn't our own, but the filter that we make them in. How does it impact the employee? How does it impact the business? What is the right thing to do? And when we hired individuals that were able to be on the same alignment with that type of actions, it avoided a lot of conflict. The other thing that we did is rewarded the behaviors that we wanted to see. Bold always had a shout out channel, and it's only been getting more and more loud, because we have a culture where we recognize the behaviors of our values when people execute on them. And it becomes a bit of a goal. I wouldn't say anyone has ever said they wanted to get on there, but I have certainly had many conversations when they appreciated that affirmation. And therefore, I think the thing we're most proud of is the existing team that really believed in the vision, and we rewarded them. And as new team members came in, you can't just do it from the top. You really can't. The top can affect the upper management, the upper management, the middle management, and the middle management all the way down. And you can have crossover employees from different departments really promoting the overall direction of the business. And I would say that it was really hard for us to achieve that with so many people that joined the organization, but we regularly spoke about it. We spoke about it in leadership. We spoke about it in our L10s each week. It was something that kind of naturally happened. I don't know if you would agree, Gary. It's not like we said, "Ooh, we got to work on culture." I think that just the excitement of what we were doing allowed us to spend a lot of time on the culture aspect. Because when there was the, what'd you say, the row hitting the person in front,
Yeah.
and you take that paddle and beat them, it was like a major red flag. We could just see it, and it was major conflict. So we were able to address it as a team and address it quickly, because that type of conflict was not regular at all inside of the three businesses. They were all kind of humming. And therefore, when there was conflict, we were able to address it quickly. And therefore, I'd say if you have conflict, you address it quickly, and that kind of helps the bad apple from ruining the culture.
Yeah, bad news never ages well, right? Like that is true in every single situation. I have a follow-up question, but Gary, first, what would you add to what Tyler said in terms of, those new hires and getting them acclimated?
I don't know if you asked this on this question or question before that, but I alluded to it earlier. Assessing the cultural fit in the beginning through our hiring process is certainly really important. I think the other thing I would say is you may be familiar with this concept, Patrick Lencioni's, what is it called? Working geniuses concept.
Yep.
And the working genius is what we've realized is that we have some folks in the organization that, the concept real quick in summary is there's these 6 working geniuses, and it's, usually there's 2 what they call working geniuses that gives every person their energy. They enjoy doing it. They're passionate about it. On the reverse side of that is the working frustrations. Usually there's 2 of those that are someone's working frustration where you keep doing it and it just drains their energy. And then there's the middle there. That's the working competency. If you can do it, you're good at it. But if you do it for too long of a time, it may become a working frustration. So I think understanding the people aspect of things, whether it's a cultural fit, whether it's they're working if someone's working in their genius or working in their frustrations, really helps us assess a good fit. If someone's in a right, EOS talks about right person, right seat. And if that's true, we're able to assess that and make decisions much quicker and really help the people along that, maybe they're the right person, but they're in the wrong department,
Yeah.
and we've had a few of those instances that happen where we kind of put them in a different area of the business and they thrive.
So one of the reasons I'm smiling again, you guys haven't heard yet our prior episode with Stephen Enfield because it hasn't dropped yet. It's just Chris Arnold, our marketing director, and me are the only 2 who have access to it. But he talked about EOS, he talked about Traction, he talked about Patrick Lencioni to the point of it seems like they're sponsors now. So maybe they're going to sponsor this episode as well. But it sounds like what you're getting back to, like if somebody, they might get into working genius, like at the RSPA, in my history's been have a personality assessment tool. I like the DISC test. We also like giving folks an essay as well, an essay assignment. But it sounds like what both of you are saying is it's not just sitting down with somebody, looking at their resume, shooting the breeze for a while. You have to have some sort of an assessment tool that you're giving to everybody, and that way you're able to do a way better comparison and understand if they're a fit or not, and having those values as well that you're seeing everything through the filter. So I'm kind of like putting together everything you guys are saying. Am I understanding that correctly, or am I putting words in your mouth, or am I missing a big part of it?
No, you're on the right track. I think that we put as much value in who the person is as we do their ability and skill set to do the work. And that has been a big difference. Understanding, taking the time to not have an interview, but a dialogue. To assess the individual, understand the individual, what their goals are, what their history is, what they're looking for in their next career. We want to ensure what their pay requirements are, what their needs are. We certainly want to put people in positions to succeed. So as we go through the hiring process, we certainly filter who appears to be capable to do the job. We do an interview, a very early cultural fit interview. Then we really get into the subject matter. And if they pass the subject matter, we get into what's more important of the interview process, which is them as a person. The other thing I think we do that's really unique is we often, especially in upper management and middle management, we take the time, often I try myself, to paint the vision of the future, go over our VTO, go over our 10-year, our 5-year, our 1 year, what we're trying to achieve, where we came from. And I actually take the time to paint that future and the work that's going to be required to achieve that future and ask them if they want to join it. And we ask them to pause and go think about it. And if this is really what they want to do. And we've actually had 2 people walk away and then recommend someone else that would be a good fit. We have found that transparency through our interview process is something we're regularly getting thanked for. And we don't paint a picture of what we want to be. We paint a picture of who we are and that we're working towards this. And they could be a part of joining that process. And it's been refreshing how well it's received and how well the new hire jumps in, understanding the workload. Because if you kind of say, hey, we got a lot of work, we got a lot of cases over here, and we do that up front, and then they take the job, they're mindset is towards, I'm going to drive that down. I'm going to make an impact. I'm going to
Yes.
be seen. And we've had some hires that have made dramatic impact at targeted areas, and we reward them for it.
That's right. Spell out the challenge, and if they're up for the challenge, good. If it scares them away, it's probably better you find that out before you put them on the payroll. So it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of things right. Obviously, the numbers show that from my perspective. Again, there's all sorts of things where I'm nodding like, oh yeah, that's how it should be done. Can you look back and say, from a leadership perspective, what would you do differently, right? Is there anything that you feel like you overlooked, or you say, I should have done more of this, or we should have done less of that, or we completely blew this aspect of it? Now that, hindsight's 2020, how would you guys view that? Who's brave enough, or bold enough, I should say, to answer that question first?
Bold enough.
I'll take that.
Go
Good,
ahead,
it's on your
Jared.
shirt, so it
I
seems
like how you
appropriate.
got bold into that. That was
Sure,
good.
happy to do it. And you guys
Yeah.
will be a sponsor of this, along with the EOS and Patrick Lencioni. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'd say shortly. So 3 companies became one on July 1st, if you will, the summer of 2022. And there was a lot. Like, I won't rehash what Tyler mentioned earlier, but we certainly hit some growing pains and had a couple of black eyes trying to put, the way I put it, I use this analogy. It's like a lot of us like to play Legos when we were younger. It's 3 large Lego buildings, right, that we have, and then we're trying to bang them together and make a ginormous Lego building. You could take that analogy for what it's worth and envision that. But I would say one of the things, looking back at it, it's a great question, Jim. Number one, we're a big fan of, of learning from and making quick decisions, right? Making changes, things that don't work, right? So my hot sauce days, I'll hit the rewind button for a second. We did direct sales. All right. And what I learned from direct sales is we thought that was the way to go. We were able to undercut the VARs because we wrote the software, but it was hard to scale. Each salesperson can sell X amount of systems per month to a restaurant. And then with that said, each installer can only install X amount of systems per month. Therefore, in order to grow and scale, you had to keep hiring. Right. And I'm sitting here looking at our competitors, how they've scaled using the VAR channel. Right. So with that said, fast forward to Tonic, and this is why we're 100% partner focused. We're building a platform to help a lot of these VARs go compete in the marketplace with the Toast and Spot Ons of the world, who've raised hundreds of millions of dollars, but they have a really strong direct sales force. But people want that local service. So, what I've learned from a leadership perspective there is you've got to be willing to make changes and be real with ourselves, what's not working, and make some changes. Post merger, now coming full circle, I would say hiring a middle management team. We've hired a lot of directors and middle management team members over the last 9 months. Looking back at it, I think that we're trying to take everything on ourselves as a leadership team, and instead of working on the business, we found ourselves putting out fires, working in the business. So one of the things I would say is maybe starting to build that middle management team, that those directors and that level right below the leadership team will be something that if I had to go back and redo, that we would reassess that piece of it for sure. What about you, Tyler? Anything comes to mind for you?
Man, there's so many things that come to mind because we're always learning and growing. And it's hard to choose one that is valuable to share, but I'll go with a couple of them and try and make them short. Number one is we were extremely loyal. We were loyal to who built our businesses with us. And because we had trust in those team members, we asked too much of them. As we decided to take on a greater and larger vision than what each company was doing, we looked to those individuals to scale with us, and it was too much. We put too much.
Too much from a skill set standpoint, or too much from a volume of work, or both?
Capacity was the word that we all swore we needed to stop saying.
Okay.
Capacity.
Yeah.
But it was both. When you take someone who's used to running one department and you want them to run another, and it's not in their working genius, right? And it can run a team of 6, but not a team of 12. And I think that we realized we needed to focus in on the working geniuses, just where people get their energy, where they're excited to work, because we had all this loyalty, we had all these people excited, and they stuck it out. They wanted to be here, but they needed us as leaders to help put them in a position where they thrived. And I think that in the early days, we needed capacity and we were spreading a lot of workload across individuals because it takes time to ramp up. Even with 47 new hires, they are not, with the level of support that we'd like them to be today because there's so much knowledge that's required for a POS and payment space. And I think we're in a good spot now, but I would say that was something we didn't learn right away, is to put people in spots where they thrive, not where we need help, and go look for someone that thrives with the area that needs help. If I looked at other leadership qualities or leadership issues I would change is the willingness, Gary touched on it, to work on the business, not in the business. And that's just a coined term. So let's talk about what that means. I myself at one point was running, I think 4 or 5 departments, and I love working in the business. I love solving problems. I love talking to the employees. And I thought, what would I do if I had more time, right? What I have learned is we've expanded and we've elevated and we've delegated and we've trusted in our team and we've let them fail, which was, Gary will attest, something I did not do well. I did not let the leash go too far. And I think that helped create the culture and the dynamic and the goal setting, with certain individuals where we got on the same page. But I've realized with a little bit of free time as a leader, just thinking is where you can find the next best idea. And it's reflecting on the business with time you thought you didn't need, but because you're a serial entrepreneur, because you're passionate about what you're doing, your brain is still going to work on that. And I don't know how many ideas, as we've gotten to more capacity, that Gary and I have gotten on a call and we've come off that call with a major change for the better.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't value that coming into the merger. I valued work, solve problem, solve problem, solve problem. And as we freed up, not entirely, it's always a work in process, there's a greater concept. So EOS talks about visionary and integrator, and visionary is your CEO, supposed to have the grand vision. And I think as someone who enjoys both roles, as I've gotten more free time in the day, I can have a greater vision. And I was worried what would come to mind. But if you're a visionary, more comes to mind.
Right.
Ultimately, short answer, I would delegate a lot more.
Yep. God, I love that. And talking about letting people fail, I can't remember who the source was, but I remember them asking, a bunch of business leaders, "Have you learned through failure?" And everybody's like, "Oh, absolutely." Well, then why are you getting in the way of that learning opportunity for your employees? Why are you never letting them fail? Why are you always, stopping it before? Obviously, you don't let somebody go and wreck the business, but if you're always jumping in and you're not delegating, you're never going to be teaching because something comes out of falling short. That's how all of us learn, right? I haven't had anybody on this podcast yet who's like, still perfect, still, 1,020 for 1,020. Haven't messed up yet. Like everybody does. So I have some more questions, but first I want to pause so that our listeners and viewers who don't know about the RSPA know a little bit more about the Retail Solutions Provider Association. The RSPA is North America's largest community of retail technology VARs, software providers, vendors, and distributors. To accelerate your success through an RSPA membership, email membership@gorspa.org. Also want to make sure everybody knows that registration is now open for Retail Now 2024, the Retail IT Channel's #1 trade show, education conference, and networking event. This year's event is set for July 28th through 30th at the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas. For more information, visit gorspa.org/Retail Now. Retail Now is where the industry meets. Also, finally, we have to thank our sponsors who support the RSPA community and make this podcast and video series possible. Our platinum sponsors, Blue Star. Our gold sponsors are CoCard, Epson, Heartland, and ScanSource. All right, so let's get back to you. Thank you so much for talking about, you've weaved in your own personal stories, your own personal experience. Can you talk about the folks who helped you before you got those leadership roles, and even now as you have those leadership roles? Who's helped you shape your leadership approach? Like, what did they say to you? What did they do? What did they show that's really had a lasting impact on you? Who wants to take that one first?
Yeah, I'll kind of start on that one. I think we're going to work together on that because names that pop to mind, first of all, Gary Liu, someone who's helped shape me as an adult, as a human, as a person, as a father, as a businessman, and just navigating partnership. I never thought I'd get into a partnership. Gary's a special person, and I believe I'm the same, where he wouldn't have done it as well. And so the first name I want to say is Gary. Gary, you can't say me first because I stole the thunder on that one. But fathers, my dad today inspires me. I was walking through Chris Venza through the house. I was visiting Oregon, and my dad's a professional hunter. And when I say that, it's hard for people to understand. What does it mean to be a professional hunter? Well, he had Northwest Hunter, which is a television program that was on for, I think, 20 years and like syndicated across 170 countries. It was one of the earliest ones before Outdoor Channel. And I walked Venza through it. He built the log home, first of all. I grew up in a log home, a true cabin. He dropped all the trees. He had skiving parties where people would come. Only one person came to both parties. It's a lot of work. And I walked him through, Jim, and I'll maybe send you some video, but there's about probably 200 mounts in there. And as we speak now, he is chasing his North American, I think, Great 29, Super 29. Don't forgive me, I'm not an avid hunter as he is, but only 200 people in the world have achieved that. And he was in Canada hunting polar bear in negative 40-degree weather, living on ice and doing 500 kilometers of snowmobiling. And he was not successful. I believe he's on his way home for anyone who would want him not to be. He was not on this trip. Ironically, he texted me and said, first time he's never passed on an animal and he's never seen one. And I told him, there's always a first time for everything. And that clearly he needed to be humbled, and he got that. So for me, who's impacted me as my leadership is my father. He's just right there. He's driving. He's just been so successful. He's now launching a sportsman show in Nevada. He does not need to do that, but he sees an opportunity. He designed a knife for Gerber. He designed his binocular harness. He launched a TV show. He was a fireman before that. He had a nursery. He's a mechanic. He's an electrician. He built his home. I mean, when I get into the details of it and I tell people and they really see it, it's like, man, I'm just trying to chase a great man. And when you have a great man, you're always trying to chase, who also advises you. I'm really blessed to have that in my life. In addition to my dad has been Priority Payment Systems was founded by John Priori, Dwayne Haskett, Richie Harris. I was 23 years old when I met them. And I was flying on a plane, visiting my friend who was about to be deployed in Texas, going to Phoenix on a layover. They happened to be on that plane. And I ended up becoming an ISO agent with Priority Payment Systems at 23, going to President's Clubs where I met Gary, where I met many. I could name about 40 people who have been guiding me through life, teaching me their lessons. And while I named a few, I would say my opinion on this is it's not about just the great ones who lead by a great example, but it's also the lessons you can learn by just watching others. And I just try and watch you, Jim. I try and watch everyone at the shows. I try and listen to podcasts. So it isn't any one person. It's just always listening and trying to reflect what lessons can be learned from other people.
Yeah, and vacuum the brains of everybody you meet. You and I have had that conversation before. Yeah, we did. On the next.
So I put a little plug in there for my old man. I didn't mean to do that, but ultimately the truth is he's who's guided me as a leader. And he always said, those payments, they've always been paying you, Tyler. He said, your business may not always be good. You need to plan for it. And of course, starting at 23, it's like, this has been a great run, Dad. It's payments. That'll never go backwards. And we work with a bunch of bars, Dad, so they'll always stay open. And I swear he jinxed me. He started telling me that like 18, 19. We hit 2020 just like everybody else, and 80% revenue drop in 1 month. And my dad called and said, okay, what's your plan?
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Gary, who have been leaders that you've emulated, who's given you guidance?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what Tyler said. It is very important to have mentors and leaders to learn from, right? And it's one thing I did not do in my hot sauce days in my early 20s. I didn't intentionally go out and seek mentors or find advisors. And, my life has completely turned around the last 20 years as I gotten older, hopefully a little bit wiser. where whether it's mentors or leaders for life and for business. So, the story of my dad, sometimes is really the opposite of Tyler's. My dad, I got a picture of what not to do, and I don't have any ill will towards my dad. He passed many years ago, but no ill will. I don't have any bad feelings. It's just that there was just this generational habits that he had taken on from previous generations. And I would just summarize it and say a lack of responsibility, right? So that opportunity gave me some eyes to open up and say, hey, I want to go a different direction. I want to go a different direction, especially as I become a dad. Okay. Because I have 4 kids, ranging from 7 to 14 years old, 2 boys and 2 girls, that I wanted to do something different. So regardless if it's the story of, generations of where I came from, or whether it's the business world, I think it's very important finding leaders. Tyler had mentioned it. A couple of the senior founders of Priority Payment Systems are certainly great mentors in my life. And, there's a great book quoting a great book that says, iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another. And I really believe in that, that we can all. I tried doing life by myself for the first 25 years. It didn't work out so hot. All right. So the last 15, 20 years, seeking mentorship, seeking wisdom, seeking advice, especially from those who've been there and done that. If I can avoid potholes, right, or a black eye here or there, is humongous. So I don't know if I gave you a direct answer on that front. But obviously it's just multiple people. I would say the same thing, right? Multiple people. And also I think it leads into maybe your next question of how do we continue to improve ourselves, and maybe we'll get to that here in just a moment.
Yeah. So thanks for being willing to share that, especially about your dad as well. So talk about, self-improvement. We have only a few minutes left, but can you talk about one thing that's really impacted you, Gary?
Yeah, the one thing I would say is it's funny, this group I got invited to in 2009 actually called ISI, which stands for Iron Sharpens Iron. They've rebranded to Iron Forums now, but it's a Christian men's business owners group where we are very transparent and help each other with life and business, or how are we doing as a parent, how are we doing as a husband, how are we doing as leaders in our organization. And majority of the time, we spend time talking about a burning issue in our life we're dealing with right now. It could be business related, could be personally related, and just sitting around the same group of. It's usually a table of 4, so it's a bigger group, but they break down to smaller groups. And they know your story, we know their story. To be able to be transparent and vulnerable, and to try to gain wisdom from them, and at the same time, when they're telling their story or they're dealing with their burning issue, it's really cool that we're able to pour back into it. So I think that's one area amongst other conferences and leadership conferences and podcasts, but that's a big one for me.
Great. Thank you. Tyler, what's one, activity you engage in that helps you as a leader today?
Mental health. Actually, for myself, went through a separation in 2020, and I think I changed how I engage with people at home and at work for the better. Understanding that as humans, how we feel matters, and not compartmentalizing the issues, not, being asked to check it at the door. I don't know how many times I hit the door growing up. People said, leave your issues at the door. You're on a sporting team. You got to be focused. So, a lot of us that did that, you slap the door on your way in, and that's kind of like, all right, I'm leaving it all here. I'll pick you up on the way out. And so I engage, in therapy, quite frankly. And it's not as often anymore because I learned TAPAS acupuncture treatment methodology, which kind of helps just you frame your thoughts. You just kind of do this and you can think on a subject and repeat it. I've gotten so good at it, I don't even have to follow those protocols. I can just think now independently and process my emotions. And that has led me to be a very calm leader. I was always calm, and I learned that watching Richie and my dad. If you're the calm one in the room, you're in, thinking of a clear mind, and you'll make the best decision. And I think as I aged and I've gone through more hardship and bad investments and being taken advantage of, and it triggers a lot of anger and a lot of frustration. And as that process internally becomes refined to really be clear and easier, it makes you a better leader, because there's no issues that we've come across as a company that I've lost my cool on. One of them, Gary he'll attest. We switched to Bill.com to pay all of our partners. And we were at a leadership meeting. It was a quarterly, and Bill.com did not fund about 70% of our partners. And as you know, in the payment space, paying on time and paying reliable is essential. And we had a new controller at the time, and he had done the changeover, and there were some things that could have been done different. So we were trying to solve that in the moment. And it took us 4 or 5 hours to even make progress on that. It really took away from the day, but we stayed calm. Not just me, every single person in the room. I mean, this is the greatest challenge we had faced at that moment. We called company meetings. We got everybody aligned. We called all of our partners. We offered to pre-fund any that needed it. We really went above and beyond in that moment. But I think our success was because we were calm. We weren't angry. Now, our controller at the time was pretty angry. He's pretty mad at Bill.com. He was a little frustrated, right? And so the rest of the team rallied around him. And, let's think of it differently. Let's say as the CEO, if I just pounded the table, got upset, said, solve this problem, this is on you, how would the team have responded? They wouldn't have collaborated the way we did. We went as far as really cleverly, so using social media, Jim, we went on and posted on the CEO of, his name is Renee, I remember it today. And we posted this clever response because we couldn't get through support. We had a call within, less than an hour, Gary?
Yeah.
We were on the call with the executive escalations manager, all by posting on social media. But that was a collaborative effort. It was one of our team members' idea. Then it was 3 of us that sat there and crafted exactly what to say to be positive, but highlight there's an issue. So ultimately, to be a better leader, you need to learn to manage your emotions.
Yeah, so we're right at time for when we're supposed to end this recording. I hope you guys, because I have one more follow-up questions based on what you just said, Tyler. And Gary, I want you to take it first. So Tyler, you and I had talked, so it hasn't gone live yet, but you did an interview with me, and we really dove into how sports and coaching and competing has shaped me. And what you just talked about now is something that I taught when I coached a lot, because I observed it. I always called it the freak out factor. Right? You want the other team to freak out and not you. If you remain calm, oftentimes you just wait for them to feel the pressure and press too hard, and then they'll screw up, and then things become actually easy for you. And that's so true in business as well, right? If you get the example that you just shared there. So I guess, Gary, can you talk about that as a leader, the importance of not freaking out, and how difficult that can be when you've got a lot of pressure and payroll to make and people who are relying on you for your income? So Gary, I want to hear your take on the freak out factor and keeping your calm. And then Tyler, you can have our final word on that.
I think no matter what business you're in, we're in a business of problem solving or solving issues, right? And if you're in freak out mode, it's a little bit harder to solve an issue, right? You got to take yourself step away from it and collaborate. And if you're leading a team as well, if I'm in freak out mode and trying to solve an issue, and the team members underneath are going to follow suit with that, versus the opposite. If we're able to do it calmly and logically, right, and think through how do we solve the problem, solve it efficiently, then to Tyler's point with the last example, you get collaborative teamwork to try to get that done. So I know we're short on time, so I kept that answer short.
I appreciate it. Tyler. It'd be great if you would freak out right now and start, it's too much pressure.
Yeah, exactly. I said, oh man, stage fright. How do you manage through freak out and the impact of it? It's a learned lesson. This is not something people are born with, right? And you go through it. I think to bring the entire day's conversation together, having strong relationships in my life who have been able to be there in freak out moments, building a team in the trenches with me that make me feel better, that not better as a person, but they make me feel more confident that we can achieve anything. With Gary by my side, Jesse, Venza, Patty, that is our top leadership now. I feel like there is absolutely no obstacle that we cannot overcome together. And I think that really helps me stay calm. And I think that trickles down into our staff, that if they believe in us, if we're calm through the storm, that keeps them calm through their concerns. And when we see a correction that's going to come eventually, and the team saying, hey, I'm barely surviving now, what happens? Trusting in us that we're making the right moves to protect them into the future as an organization. We're thinking about those things now. We're thinking about how are we going to stay calm when things are not calm? How are we going to succeed when things get more difficult? And it's just a trickle down effect. And we see the value in it through our own personal hardships. Gary didn't get into it, but when he was younger, he was a wild guy, right? He's got some great stories. If you ever get him, grab him and just ask him about a house party he had one time.
Oh boy, what a way to leave the end of the episode.
Yeah, that'll
find me in retail now.
Yeah, it's a heck of a story. And I've had my hardships, going through separations, just failed relationships, my brother, etc. These have hardened us, our emotions. Hardened emotion is not what you're looking for. You don't want to be locked down, but they've hardened our ability to desire fixing them. Like I went through therapy, two therapists, 8 hours a week for 2 months straight. When I was like, you know what, I got a lot I got to offload. This was in 2020. I'm going to fix it. And I think by addressing our issues, you don't lose your cool when you have a fire. Because if you do, it's just like full court press. How many times do you get a steal on full court press when it's an amazingly good ball handler, but he makes the long pass?
Yep. And one thing leads to another, Well, gentlemen, this has been a really insightful conversation. And also, I appreciate your transparency as well, right? We really got to know not just your business, but got to know you guys as people as well. So I greatly appreciate that. So, well, that does it for this episode of The Trusted Advisor. If you enjoyed our discussion, be sure to subscribe to the RSPA YouTube channel and the Trusted Advisor podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you'd like to learn more best practices for VARs and ISVs in the retail technology industry, check out the RSPA blog. You can find it at gorspa.org and then clicking on RSPA blog. Before we go, big thanks again to Gary, Liu, and Tyler Young for sharing with us their wisdom today. Thanks also to RSPA Marketing Director Chris Arnold for his production work, Joseph McDade for our music, and last but not least, thanks so much to you for listening. Our goal at the RSPA is to accelerate the success of our members in the retail technology ecosystem by providing knowledge and connections. For more information, visit our website at gorspa.org. Thanks for listening, and goodbye, everybody.